Okay. This is Curse of the Azure Bonds. I will be ready to go in... one sec. Okay, now I'm ready to go in 3, 2, 1, start. Alrighty. What we have here is Curse of the Azure Bonds, Advanced Dungeons & Dragons game. It is one of the first D&D games ever made with using real D&D rules. It's the sequel to Pool of Radiance, with the first of the Gold Box games produced by SSI. They use first edition rules, even though second edition had already been produced by the game, which are kind of complicated and weird. I'll try to explain some of it as I can over the course of the run. But we're 5th level characters. We've had our adventure in Pool of Radiance. It is a sequel, and if you play Pool of Radiance first, you can actually transfer your characters in to play this further game. But for a normal speedrun or very casual play, you'll probably just build a brand new party as I've done here. So first thing we have to do is, even though we were previous adventurers and we had equipment, the game didn't want to transfer in from the previous game. So they have a contrived thing to strip you of all your gear. So you wake up in Tilverton in an inn. Somebody left you here with a bunch of money, but no equipment. So yeah, first thing you have to do is go buy equipment for all your characters all over again. Now we've got our characters equipped. Only got 2 bowmen for this. In Pool of Radiance, you use bowmen a lot. They're really useful in the lower game, especially against lower HP monsters, but they do a lot less damage than swords, and I'm going to be getting a really powerful magic sword, and through the one real glitch in this game, giving it to my entire party, so I don't really need to worry about ranged weapons for the most part. First thing we have to do is talk to this old lady. We woke up with these weird blue sigils on our arm, and they move. They're magical tattoos. We don't know what it's about. She tells us a bit about them, but can't tell us very much. Takes half our money, so we want to go there later. We try to leave the city. The king's carriage shows up, and when the king starts talking, we suddenly find ourselves compelled to attack the king. Then we find out it isn't really the king. Inside the carriage is a bard named Georgie Wyvernspur. He's actually known, appears in several books in the Forgotten Realms series from the 80s and 90s era, including the Azure Bonds book upon which this game is based, which it also kind of serves as a sequel to. But he can mimic the king's voice, and the king, knowing that assassins were coming after him, had him sit there so that we could lure out the assassins, who happen to be us. After we know it's not the king, the bonds no longer compel us to attack, but there are guards charging up to get us, so our first battle in the game we have to deal with the guards who are trying to defend the king's carriage. So then more guards show up, we surrender, we get thrown in jail, then thieves break us out and take us down below. We get a chance to rest here. Rest up. There's a fixed command here that lets us quickly heal, which is very nice after playing Pool of Radiance. But before the thieves can explain much to us, there's a bit of a Thieves Guild war going on here between the regular Thieves Guild and this group of assassins called the Fire Knives, who are trying to overthrow the kingdom. And they put one of the symbols on us, one of the 5 weird symbols on our arm, who are all these masters who are trying to use these bonds to control us. And so they want to use us to wipe out the royalty, you know, the royal family of Cormyr, so that they can take it over and establish their own lawful evil civilization. So the first thing we have to do is deal with this Guildhall War. Many of these thieves are our allies in this battle only, and many more of them are the enemy. So it's pretty hard to differentiate between them. Mostly you have to use the titles. Blue characters are allies, and yellow named characters are enemies. So The Fire Knives have bows and a much lower armor class. They're the most dangerous. But using the Hold Person spell, the Cleric can paralyze a lot of characters. Paralyzation is really nasty in these games because a paralyzed character is vulnerable to getting one-shot by a killing blow. There's no roll to attack, no chance for them to not be hit. If they are helpless and they get attacked, it's a one-shot kill that puts them down into dying status, which means they're not actually quite dead, but they will die unless an ally bandages them. The enemy never bothers to bandage their units, of course. They're basically removed from combat once they're dying, and only regenerating creatures like trolls can come back after being killed. So those guys are both helpless. Luckily, the game tells you if characters are helpless, so if you're paying attention, you won't cast the spell on multiple units again. Saving throws are, since it's D&D, a large portion of RNG goes into everything here, from 2-hit rolls to saving throws on spells. And so all these spells that have saving throws are, just a major source of RNG as to whether they work or not. There's also morale in this game, despite it being so old. You can see that the thieves are starting to run away because we've been slaughtering them. So now we have to, unfortunately, chase them down and kill them, which is a bit of a time loss. Sometimes, if their morale gets low enough, they'll even surrender, which actually just removes them automatically from combat and treats them as if they were killed. So that's very convenient when that happens, but unfortunately, these enemies usually just run away. So, big time unfortunately, a couple of thieves got in front of my characters with this thief, so my normal swordsman, this is like some of the worst RNG that can happen in this fight. I could theoretically try and hack my way through the thieves, but this would be... If you attack one of your allies... Oh, she killed it. Great. That's good. I was going to try and move her forward to paralyze him, but that didn't happen, so... She managed to finish him off before she got close enough, so that's convenient. So one of the things I'm going to have to do a lot is quit and reload when we get into random encounters. So far, it hasn't messed up any streams and everything, so hopefully this will come back without problem as well. Rat test. But it's a lot faster than fighting out these battles, so I'm going to be saving often to try and minimize the amount of times I have to reload. Or the amount of spaces I have to go. This is a set battle here against these dogs. One fire knife and just a whole lot of dogs. So unfortunately, yes, there's a bit of animal cruelty in this game, but blame the fire knives for turning these poor little dogs, who are really sad, weak little monsters, into enemies we have to vanquish. Our party here consists of a paladin and 3 fighters, all human, a human female cleric, and a half-elf fighter magic user male. Because first edition happens to be a somewhat, not only does it engage in animal cruelty, but it's also a sexist and racist video game, or gaming system. Because human males are far and away the best race in pretty much everything, most especially in strength, and which is by far and away the most important statistic for dealing with enemies and such in this game. So now we found our treasure room. We found our most powerful, important magic item to start with, the Dust of Disappearance, as well as a few magic potions, which are useful. We can now drop our other longsword in this plate mail, so we can wear that. Dust of Disappearance is super broken, and we're going to be making major use of it. We can now rest in here as well. There are only a few places in the game that you can rest totally safely, so we have to take advantage of those while we have the opportunity. Because we need to rest to get our spells back and, of course, to heal us up. We don't just get healed from an automatically from resting. That was a fortuitous save because we got a random encounter. But you have to deal with... You actually have to heal 1 hit point a day of resting or cast healing spells. Pool of Radiance, you have to do that manually, and you never get more than the first level healing spell, which only heals 1 to 8 random points of damage. But fortunately, Curse of the Azure Bonds gave us a fix command, which is a little bit more useful. It essentially sets the game up so all of our healing abilities are spent, and then we rest and rememorize them automatically. So it greatly speeds up the healing for us. And we're getting some pretty bad encounters here in the hideout to begin with. On a good run, I get 1 encounters or maybe even none sometimes, but it's just, again, very big source of RNG with all these random encounters. Luckily, these thieves don't attack us. It's one of the random encounters, technically. You can run into them anywhere. But as long as you remain calm, you don't have to worry about fighting them. We're almost out of the hideout and into an area with no encounters, at least based on where I go. And unfortunately, we get attacked there. This has been one of the worst hideouts in quite a while. I ran a even timerless, just a real quick practice run this morning, and my RNG encounter luck was, of course, really fantastic, at least through the early game. So naturally now I'm getting the much worse. Okay, now we're in the sewers. We go through the secret path into the sewers here, and this allows us to... we don't want to go through there. There's paper. Now, these are YeGA1s. They're really nasty things, but these ones won't fight us because they want us. They have treasure, and they will give us the treasure if we will help them out by taking out these other YeGA1s who have a much nastier filth pit. We agree to help them, but then we don't do it because we don't want to. It's a speedrun, and we don't have time to do quests like this. There's a battle here that is worth fighting for most especially some experience, also a few useful magic items that aren't super vital but do make things a little bit easier for us. Combat him. Oh, that's right. Stinking Cloud creates a small area. It's a short-range spell. And creates a small area of this noxious gas, which can paralyze enemies that go into it, but at the very minimum causes them to cough, which reduces their, basically their armor class and their 2-hit, their Thaco as it's called in this game, or Thaco depending on your pronunciation preference. Girdle of the Dwarves gives a few hit points. Those are the only things that are really necessary. And now we can rest here as well, which is good because they were some pretty nasty fights. Bless and Prayer are good, basic, generic spells to cast. They're buff spells that improve your chances to hit and such right before combat. Now, if we look here, we find a secret door. Secret doors in this game are weird. Some of them you can, if you walk into it, you just automatically pass through it. Some you have to search for and find first. Now, we can get encounters in this room, and we don't want those encounters. So now we come through here to this secret room, and no encounters. From here on out, I can get encounters again. But we're almost to the end of the fire knife area, so we want to avoid encounters if we can. And right, the last step we could possibly get an encounter, we got an encounter. That's great. Now, SSI did not really believe in background music, so the game actually has no background music. What's playing in the background is actually the NES version of Pools of Radiance, which Nintendo wasn't going to allow a game to have no background music, so they came up with their own. Yeah, that's all I need. And now we get a +2 flail. I don't know why I even grabbed the +1 because I get the +2 here. Now we're going to save the game and begin the glitching of this game. There's only one major glitch in the game that's in any way usable. It's not technically a glitch. It's more of an exploit because it exists in all of the Gold Box games. So they could have fixed it at any point, but not without ruining the way the game's set up. So they just let it go through. And my game is having trouble loading, which sometimes happens. Okay, here we go. So how this works is I'm going to be transferring equipment to a 7th party member who's not in the party, which you can reach by starting the game all over again. I'm removing Silver from the party and then adding Bags here. My good friend Bags is going to hold on to some stuff for me. I'm going to trade him this dust, necklace, and longsword. And then I'm going to remove him from the party, and then I'm going to drop my party so that my party no longer exists. Once that happens, I'm at the beginning game and I can load. Whoops, that was the wrong one. Load my save game again. Silver's back in the party. We remove him again. Now we add Bags. Look, Bags has the stuff for me. Dust, longsword, and necklace. Now I'm going to remove Bags from the party, save the game as B again. And now I'm going to add Bags back to the party. Hey, this stuff, I want you to hold on to it for me. Oh, and blue stuff, you need to hold on to that for me too. Now I remove him from the party, and now I drop the party again. And using this, I'm able to multiply all my equipment, because I never traded away the stuff in the save game. But party members who are not in the party exist outside of save games. So, did I transfer everything to him? No, I did fine. Okay. Alright, now, I only need to trade one more longsword to Bags. And then I just need to trade him the Dust of Disappearance and the necklaces. Not the longsword. This is the second most powerful longsword in the game, the +3 Frost brand, which you don't need to identify in order to use most items in this game. So now Violet will get that, and that, and that. Overwrite Bags, yes. Okay, now save the game as C again, add Bags back. Almost done transferring items. So the necklaces are necklaces of missiles that allow you to basically throw fireballs. Despite the name, they don't throw Magic Missile, the quintessential D&D spell, but they throw Fireball, the other quintessential D&D spell, that is much more powerful and does a huge area. So using these, I'm going to be able to blow through most of the enemies in the game. Alrighty. We're fine now. Okay, that's enough. Now we can add Silver back to the party. Longsword. Game has the extra necklace of missiles. Silver needs one necklace of missiles for now. And now we can save the game as B, begin adventuring, hopefully not get into an encounter. On the one spot left we can get an encounter. Okay. And now we're going to use this Dust of Disappearance. Dust of Disappearance gives improved invisibility to the entire party. We surrender, get taken to their leader. It lasts a very long time, and invisibility in this game is super duper broken, as are these necklaces. That's the area. So we're going to see small to large points of damage. The damage range of the Necklace of Missiles is pretty huge, but considering that you could do a 3x3, or rather a 4x4 square area, it hits a lot of enemies and does a lot of damage to them. So this is the big final group of fire knives, and we're going to be blowing through them in pretty short order. You have to have a good knowledge of where the fireballs go, though, because they are not friendly fire. we're not going to be using these bows anymore. Our characters just won't. It's not really worth it to worry about. Necklace missiles. There we are. I should have just cast a magic missile on the last guy. Nine hit points left. Just die already. One guy left with 9 hit points. That's so fantastic. He must have made all of his saving throws. With most spells in D&D, you can save against them, even damage spells. Most spells, but not all. And if you save, you take half damage. So, again, that's not only do we have RNG on our damage rolls, but we have RNG on whether they just make their saving throws or not. So now we've defeated the Fire Knives. The Princess Nicasia helps them release our leader, but the king kicks us out of Tilverton and won't let us back into Cormyr because we are possessed and we did try to attack him and we have to be punished. So now we have to go searching for the rest of our good friends who have our good friends, the villains who have put the curse on us. We just had a weird dream after leaving the city that they talked to us and told us how we'll serve them. Now, there are only a couple of encounters as we journey on the world map, and this is one of them. It happens every time, so you just have to grit your teeth and deal with it. Fireballs do a less explosive... Yes, this is this entire tournament, or this entire marathon, is entirely glitched games. And so, the glitch that I used is the only one that really exists in the game. But, that's actually pretty good right there. That'll get a decent group of them. So that I have all of these multiples of limited use equipment to last me the entire game. Those were a couple of pretty good fireballs. That's nice, so... Haha, jeez. Now, again, friendly fire works on my character, so if I go to quick combat, which is a lot faster than normal combat, characters just act so quickly. But I need to make sure that they don't have necklaces equipped if they are on quick combat, because they will use those necklaces and blow up my party, and it's not good. Yes, fireballs have a smaller AoE in outdoor areas. That is the drawback to these particular fights. Now we can go to the hall, train up our characters. He doesn't have quite enough experience, huh? That's a shame.
Kane, I did not hear you on Discord.
Not hearing me on Discord now?
Do you hear me?
One sec. Yeah, I don't know what's up. Now is my outputs device chest up? One sec. I have to look at something. Hello? Okay.
There we go. I can hear you.
Alright, I don't know what happened, but apparently I suddenly just went quiet. It was working fine, and then suddenly it was not. That's very excellent. Back to the game. Minimize that. Boom. Okay.
Good.
Alright, so we leveled up a little bit. In the game, you'd only level up when you go to a training hall, and you have to spend 200 platinum or 1,000 gold in order to do it. So, it's the only thing you really spend money on, so it's not a super big deal. Especially in this game, money is never an issue. Since you can't really buy magic items until late in the game, and even the ones you can buy aren't any good. So it's not a big deal. I'm not going to need the invisibility or really the speed. I could use the speed maybe for one combat, but I never bother to. Alright, now we go to the inn so we can rest. I don't think I do have one extra spell to memorize here. Because I gain levels. Okay. Now it's time to go in search of our next friend. We're going to go to the Standing Stone by Wilderness so we don't get attacked. Tyrant Thraxus is in disguise here. Spoilers. He tells us he actually will direct you to the next area so that he can wipe out all of his rivals. All of his fellow friends who are taking control of us as well. But we need to go to Hap. This is our second required outdoor encounter in the game, 3 black dragons, which are pretty nasty. In first edition, dragons are kind of glass cannons. They did not cooperate either. They went to totally opposite sides. They have only 48 hit points, which isn't a whole lot, but they also have breath weapons that can do 48 points of damage, or half that, 24 if I save. They do damage equal to their maximum hit points with their breath weapon, which is pretty awful damage at this point in the game. Even my big fighters only have like 80 hit points, so 2 breaths that they don't save against would kill them. Luckily, they can't use the breath at the end of their turn, only at the beginning. Very, very convenient damage there. So, if I wait for them and I manage to fireball them before they get a chance to breathe on me after approaching, I don't have to worry about them. Good. There's one left out there. He, for some reason, he must have been stuck behind some trees. Even the terrain on maps like this is totally randomized in the outdoors, so sometimes, depending on where the trees are, even though they're using their flying speed, the dragons can't actually fly through any terrain. There is no flying in the actual game to go over obstacles or characters, so it's a little bit too old and low, power for that. But so he just must have just gotten stuck. Okay, that wasn't bad. I didn't get any breath hits on me, which is good. As long as nobody goes unconscious, it's not a big deal anyway. We're going to go ahead and camp and fix up here. And now we enter the city of Hap, which is currently being ruled by Dark Elves, under the thrall of Drakandros, who is our next master. No encounters up, which is pretty good. So now, first thing we're going to do is use this dust. Then we're going to cast our Bless and Prayer spell. Yeah, this will be more than enough. So now we have this big thing. If you wander around fighting the random encounters and killing the Dark Elves, you can diminish their... Oh, this is silly of me to do. As I'm about to explain, necklaces and missiles are not what we want to do here, because Drow have 50% magic resistance, so most of the time they won't even be affected. So, during most of this encounter, I won't be able to really use my necklaces effectively, so we're just going to be having to fight our way through by the virtue of our weapons and armor. But fortunately, Dust of Disappearance is super important for these areas of the game because yeah, you actually have your old sword as well, don't need it. Because all of these drow are spellcasters. The ones in robes are wizards, the ones with the shields and maces are clerics, and they can cast nasty lightning bolts for heavy damage, or they can cast hold person, and therefore make us helpless and get one-shot us. But you can't cast on somebody who's invisible. That's the power of Dust of Disappearance. You can only attack someone in melee, and the enemy, if they don't see an enemy, and they technically don't see us, even if they're right next to us and can't attack us, they're just going to... they're just going to stand there instead. They just won't do anything. They'll try to cast spells, but they don't have a target, so they won't actually do anything. One guy ran away, but that's not bad. Nothing I can take will do any good right now. So now we freed the village of Hap. They're super excited and happy for us. Now we need to go back and train to get a very important spell for the next big fight. Well, not the next big fight, actually. It's more the one after it. So journey back to Assembra. I used to use a straight mage who would have gotten more than enough experience that I wouldn't have to go back here, but they can't do anything except for use their spells, and with the necklaces of missile, spells are actually a little bit overrated in this game. So now I need the haste spell to make my fighters more powerful for pretty much the rest of the game, but most particularly an upcoming fight. My paladin will also go up level now. Not all characters level at the same rate. Your classes determine how fast you level. Fighters level a lot faster than paladins in this game, so... Now... Now I have my haste spell ready to go, and we can go back to Hap and move to the dungeon. Before we do, we're going to go ahead and use another Dust of Disappearance. Because despite the fact that we're following this path into the wilderness, no time seems to go by. Oh, well, now maybe. I don't know if we're still invisible. We'll find out. I went to the wrong area. Happens sometimes. Every time you come to the caves, you have to fight these salamanders. Okay, I am still invisible. Even though I left into the wilderness, no time actually passed. That's the convenient thing, so... Alright, I should be spread out enough to do pretty well in this combat. So, salamanders, first edition D&D was, AD&D was still kind of light on a lot of the really efficiency rules of elements and stuff that later editions of D&D would have. Enemies like salamanders are immune to fire, but they're some of the rare ones. Even red dragons, for instance, which are fire-using dragons, are not immune to fire. And Ifrit are not immune to fire either. They have a slight resistance to fire, and that's it. But still, between enemies immune to fire, resistant to fire, and resistant to magic, it's pretty inconvenient to be using spells in this area, especially fireballs. So there's actually an NPC I could have picked up to join my party in HAP, but he's just a wizard controlled by the AI, which means he is all too willing to throw spells at my party in order to hit one enemy. So it's not worth it to add him, sadly. Now we come in here and meet these nice dark elves who are under the command of a lady named Silk. And I need a female for this part, because if you have a female, she will strike a deal with you and make Silk... and make that female party member a swan may, with put this new tattoo on her hand. We've got enough tattoos on our arms, but let's one more. Okay, I am going the right way. But this is important to avoid a fight later on. That's pretty much the only reason, but if you don't have a female, you can't do this. Another fight here against some more salamanders. And once again, we can't really do much except for go in and chop them up in combat. And because there's so much of this, I found that using a multi-class fighter magic user is generally more useful than a regular magic user, because in first edition AD&D, a multi-class elf, half-elf fighter magic user can wear plate mail and swing long swords and shields and still cast spells without any penalty. Later editions of D&D give a arcane spell failure penalty for any class that wears armor, and you have to like take feats and stuff to deal with that. But in first edition, it was really simple. You're a fighter and a magic user, you get the best of both worlds. Less hit points, but a lot of otherwise the good of both, essentially. Oh yes, and now drow armor is especially, and weapons as well, are especially good for a couple of reasons, but they disappear when they're hit by sunlight, so there are only certain areas of the game that they can be used. But for now, they're a slightly better armor class for my characters, and they allow me much faster movement when I'm charging down the enemy, so it's useful to pick them up for the entire party. Here is one of our next big fight. Even though they're pretty much anything that the game declares a spell will not hit invisible characters, but there are certain abilities that will for some reason, and one of them is this Dracolich's paralyzing gaze that it has. Which just happened there, for instance. We're bandaged, okay. Not a huge deal. He didn't kill. And Blue didn't get that experience, which is slightly unfortunate, but not a huge deal. He'll still level up faster than Red. I do need to now heal him, and fortunately he has the potion of extra healing, so he can go ahead and use that to get a few more hit points back, just so he can survive the next fight before I get a chance to rest. Now, however, any encounters I get here will automatically attack me, while I had a chance to flee before. Now we meet Tracandros. He teleports us to the top of his tower. Tracandros is this evil wizard who's trying to work with the Black Dragons, and his master plan is to use us to attack the Black Dragons so that they will think that the humans are conspiring against them. But the dragons are smarter than that, and they force him to release the seal on us, which is what that image we see just does. So now we're no longer under Dracandros' control, and we can attack the dragons, but if we attack the wizard instead, the dragons realize he's full of crap, they fly away, and we're left to deal with Dracandros, who runs away and leaves his guards to deal with us. Which is not a particularly big deal. So once we kill this group, we'll be able to rest up here on this roof. And then prepare for the worst fight in the game. Okay, magic memorize. Rather than having magic points in D&D, of course, you have a certain number of spells of each level that you can memorize. First edition D&D, that's it, and there are a lot of levels that have no particularly useful spells for just the video game in general, and especially the speed run. But you just make do with what you have. Okay, he has no more dust. So now it's your turn to use up dust. This would almost be a good... This is actually probably a better point to use that, honestly. We need to prep everything we can for this battle. This is the whole reason I made sure to get level 5 before going deeper in so I could get the haste spell. Because down here we have this Dark Elf Lord who first of all hits us with a debuff at the start of the battle from his a symbol of pain on his shield. So we're at negatives to our armor class and our 2 hit. And now he is a, 11th level fighter, 108 hit points, -7 armor class. All the 75% magic resistance as a Dark Elf, and a +5 Drow sword. So this is a really awful fight. Oh yeah, I can still try. If I get super lucky, like once in 20 tries, I have a 5% chance or something of hitting him with a hold person spell. In which case he's helpless and I get to one-shot him. And that's awesome. But otherwise, it's just pure RNG. Maybe I will kill him before he kills my entire party. Hey, there we go. So now, we get his +3 plate mail, +2 shield, and +5 longsword. So we can... No, we don't want to drop that. We want to trade that to green, actually. We can drop that, though. And drop that, so we can use these. The Drow longsword will disappear after we leave the area, so we can't keep it, but for the rest of this tower, it's going to be really useful. And that's actually all we need. Now we're going to go back up and rest, because that was a nasty fight, and we need our spells for the final fight against Drakandros. And now we're going to go ahead and we rested, so our dust went away, but now we're going to use the dust again. Really interesting room there, but I don't even have time to describe it. Most of the random encounters in this area are pretty small, and I can just go on quick combat, so it's not too bad to... I don't lose too much time by keeping the fights, and it's a lot less frustration. So I generally just... Although sometimes things like this happen and I get 2 fights in a row, but salamanders are pretty easy. Especially with these +3 frost brands we have, they count as +6 weapons against fire-using enemies like salamanders, so that's a lot of damage and a lot of a good chance to hit. Now there's an illusion here of another guard. We ignore him. Another armored contingent of Dark Elves. And right before here, there's a fight with owlbears. Doesn't matter, though. I've already got Dust of Disappearance on. So owlbears are one of the few fights in here that I can use my necklaces and missiles with. Let's actually go down this way and hit these ones. It's kind of an inconvenient location. I can't get a huge amount with each one, but it's still better than most of the fights in this entire area. Oops, that was too close. Yep, hit my own character. That's bad. I wasn't paying attention how much damage it was, but that could have done a bit. Yeah, these owlbears do look pretty derpy, but owlbears are one of the most infamous and beloved monsters in D&D. Just the concept of an owl-bear thing. I actually hit the cleric there. That was nice. Again, 50% chance to not hit any of the drow, but each one has a 50% chance to be affected by fireballs, essentially. There we go. That was a big blast. I accidentally went by another angle. Yeah, that's probably fine, actually. this morning into an area where the fireballs were a lot more effective. But it's a little bit longer to go around, so I don't know that it's really worth it. Especially if I get more encounters. If I don't get encounters, it's probably not a big thing. Did I take the necklace off of him yet? I'm not sure. I did, okay, so he's safe. Or he used it up, actually, I think. There are a limited number of charges on each necklace of missile, which is why I multiplied so many of them. And, okay. But 3 on each character is usually enough to last the entire game. And now we're back to, oh, now their morale's broken and they're starting to run away. Enemies that escape, you don't get any experience or loot for, so it's better if they don't escape usually, since I have to fight them anyway. He got away, though. When you run to the edge of the screen, there's a chance of escaping and a chance of not. And that's kind of bad. He doesn't have his heal anymore, huh? That's... He should have gotten that back from resting, but I guess it wasn't 24 hours. So, going to have to cast my healing spells. Because silver, I'm going to... Here's some more salamanders. Going to be suffering some trap damage coming up ahead that there's really nothing I can do anything about. Getting a lot of Dark Elf encounters this time around. Okay. Yeah, I am going the right way. Now we get a dragon egg, which is one of the things Silk wanted from us. I may go ahead and use that. Now we get hit by this trap. Oh, only 8 points of damage. That's nice. That's low. It's a very random amount. Okay, now... no, I don't need to make any preparations. So, wyverns here. A large party of wyverns. Wyverns are really nasty because they have a poisonous sting. And poison in first edition D&D is another really awful... what is the wording I want to use? It's really awful status ailment. If you're poisoned, you basically die. Any kind of poison is a one-shot. So, I really want to avoid getting in melee and giving them a chance to hit me and poison me. Just plain and simple. There are a lot of them, but they are not immune to fire, so fireballs from the Necklace of Missiles will make pretty short work of them. The only problem is they're in the distance, so I have to run all my characters down close enough to be able to use these. Kind of convenient. You're not close enough to throw a Necklace of Missile Fireball. Silver's going to get something better than Necklace of Missile soon, which is why he has so few. Jeez. There we go. That's a big fireball. 4 damage. Much not big fireball. Much weaker. Okay, wyvern's dead. No encounters there. So now, just to make sure, we're going to go ahead and use one more dust. Cast our Bless and Prayer. Cast Haste. And here's our battle with Dracandros. Now, Dracandros can't cast any spells on us because he's so far away. However, he can cast a nasty spell on himself called Fire Shield, which will cause him to deal damage back to us, equal to what we deal to him when we hit him in melee. And he's invisible, so we can't cast directly on him, but he is not immune to the fireball, so we can toss our necklaces and missiles down to finish him off so we don't have to worry about suffering fire shield damage from him. As well as do a little bit of damage to the Ifrits and occasionally that one Dark Elf warrior sitting behind him. Okay, no more Dracandros, so let's go ahead and quick combat. Chop down the enemies. That was actually a pretty good fireball. And there we go. We can still get some encounters on the way out, but first thing is we get this ring and bracers for silver. These are armor class 2 bracers and a ring of protection plus 3, which gives him a much better armor class. Then we get his bonus loot of 2 wands, a ring of wizardry, stuff we don't want. And of course we get an encounter, our first step after attacking him. However, we still have our haste spell, so we'll cleave through these guys pretty quickly. Haste doubles both the movement and attacks of all of your whole party in this edition of D&D. So we're now attacking twice a turn and moving at 12 to 24. And of course, one final encounter right at the door. We're going to go ahead and go to the caves real quick, give Sylph that thing, not take any of the money because we don't need it and it just weighs us down. Go back to the tower and then we can leave to the wilderness. Our Dark Elf stuff is gone, too bad. Journey to Assembra. We pass a chasm of death here, which is basically based on Monty Python, but it's essentially it's an homage to Monty Python and the Holy Grail while also being a copyright protection point, but luckily it's been disabled from the Good Old Games download of this game. Okay, now we need a tool, view items, ID these wands so I know which is which. Everything else is fine. Okay, pool share. And we have enough money to level up our characters the rest of the game. Now we go to the inn. Time to sort through our characters and our stuff. Equip our plate mail again for now. Or in some cases, banded mail. +1, which gives us more movement. And now we need to memorize our spells. I don't even use that anymore, so I probably can get rid of it. Just have it. Alright, that's those, so... Boom. Now we finally have 4th level, which gives us the second healing spell, Cure Serious Wounds, so fixing will go a little bit faster now as well. Now it's time to move on to Ulash. We'll go to the Standing Stone, via Trail. Tyrant Thraxus talks to us again and tells us to seek green to the north. Go to Hillspar via Wilderness. We want to journey mostly by Wilderness because it avoids most of the encounters. We're going to go ahead and camp and save just in case, because I am neurotic and need to do that. We ask permission. We get hit by a horse on the way out. The guards come. We parley with them. Go with the guards. We can save the game again here. Step forward. Sentinel troopers are here. We let them go. They're angry at us, but... it's a random, basically with what I do, it's a 50-50 chance of whether they like me or not. when I talk to the commander of the Red Plumes who are in Ulash. And the RNG is set up in such a way that the first time always fails, but the second time does not. And that way I avoid having to fight a big group of Zentarim, and I also don't have to fight any of the main Red Plume groups that I encounter. So now we please the commander and he lets us go. We don't get a combat. It's just funny how that works. Those guys are almost always there. There are a lot of random encounters that, just based on the way I play, always seem to happen. Okay, now we need to use some more dust before this fight. Yes, actually, I'm going to go ahead and cast one of my haste spells here as well. Let's see. The Wand of Ice Storm is a slightly smaller area, but it's a higher level spell, and it will affect these mages, who otherwise won't be affected by fireballs because they have a minor globe of invulnerability on them. Very good. And now that I'm 7th level, my characters will attack 3 times every 2 rounds, so with a haste spell, I get 3 attacks per turn with them, which is very nice. Okay, mages are done, so they can also cast the Fire Shield spell too. And of course, if they do that, I damage myself fighting them, and it's very inconvenient and troublesome. Cleric surrenders, last guy surrenders. Okay, that's a one of the more annoying fights in this area, actually. Hop in through here, come up this way. Random encounter I don't want. Kind of a small group, but still better to not do it if I don't have to. My 2 months ago, I submitted this to RPG Limit Break, and my PB was 159. Now you see my estimate is 145. I have made a lot of progress on this game just in a couple of months. It's quite nice. Man, now I'm getting some really weird encounters again. Alright, here's a set encounter. We fight these guys. Now, this is a set encounter, but it's totally random how many enemies we get. Now, Shambling Mounds are immune to fire, so I can't use fireballs on them. They take half damage from ice, so I could use Ice Storm for half effectiveness, but it's generally not worth it. So unfortunately, all we can do at the moment is just cleave them down. Oh, Lightning? Lightning, you don't want to use those on Shambling Mounds because that heals them. Most weird enemies, this is like the biggest group of Shambling Mounds I can get in this encounter. I fought as few as 2, and this time I have 6. Shambling Mounds are pretty nasty monsters. What they really are is like swamp things, essentially. They're these big mounds of moss and swamp water and vines and the kind of stuff that if you just took a big suction of swamp terrain and turned it into a creature, that's what a Shambling Mound is. They have a couple of nasty attacks, 0 armor class, 65 hit points. They are fairly nasty enemies, and they're one of the common ones we encounter here. Here in Ulash, we're after the Cult of Moander, who is the god of slime. So Shambling Mounds are kind of like some of his particularly, related beings, as it were. And they are one of the main antagonists in the original Azure Bonds novel. And they're the ones who created the Azure Bonds concept along with the bard the Nameless Bard. A big, epic Forgotten Realms story. But we fight this encounter for Wand of Lightning and Defoliation. Lightning we don't want to use, but Defoliation is a wand that casts a spell that only affects plant creatures like Shambling Mounds and does huge damage to them in a small cone. So they're trying to use the bonds, which have an extra-dimensional property, in order to resummon their dead god back from the void that he's in. So we, of course, don't want that to happen, so this is our next quest to do. Now we encounter Elias and Dragonbait, the 2 main heroes of the original Azure Bonds novel. So she was bonded before, so they know a little bit about what we're going through, and they've come to hunt down the cult, so we're going to take their help. So this is the big double battle. So we're going to cast our other haste spell. We're going to cast Bless. Oh, I already cast... Oh, I did. Darn. That's not good. I don't have a prayer spell, and I don't want to use Dispel Magic right now. I'm going to have to forget those... How can I do that? I don't think I can. Well, it's not a huge deal, really. Small thing. Sometimes I memorize the wrong spells. Use Dust of Disappearance again, mostly to put it on Elias and Dragon Bait. Otherwise, the AI does crazy things. Now, for whatever reason, the ritual just fails, and only 3 bits of Moander come through, and the god is otherwise totally killed again. But now we have to deal with Mogion and her clerics, and there are so many clerics here. They would be a huge pain with hold person spells and all the rest. But luckily, with Dust of Disappearance, of course, since we have an infinite amount and we can use it all the time, the poor clerics can sit around and do nothing while we fireball them. Now, of course, again, these fireballs don't work on the shambling mounds, but we can quickly take out the enemies in the back before they lose morale or do anything funky. Oh, you have the Wand of Defoliation. So, here's the Wand of Defoliation. Heavy damage to 3 different enemies. A 4-point fireball. That was very useful. Alright. Let's finish off Mogion. 4 points of damage again. Really weak fireballs. Good RNG here. Well, whatever. I guess we'll just melee her to death at this point. We'll probably do that just fine. So this is the only area of the game where the Wand of Defoliation is useful, but of course it does a huge amount of damage. Yes, we actually want to. Mogion also has +3 plate mail and shield, as well as a +3 mace we're going to give to Elias just because. And a Cloak of Displacement we'll give to Black just because. Cloak of Displacement gives another armor class boost. And not only is magic plate mail great for armor, it also gives us more movement. So now the 3 bits of Moander are going to fight us. They're very angry because we killed them by shutting the portal before they got through. We're not sure how we did it because we were paralyzed by the Bond's power. It wasn't Elias and Dragonbait who were trapped in vines from a spell by Mogion. So, yeah, don't know quite how it worked out, but it did. So, yay. Yes, you have a necklace, so I don't want to auto you. So what the bits of Moander effectively are is gigantic mega shambling mounds. With a lot of hit points, 140 each. So it takes quite a while to hack through them. But luckily the Wand of Defoliation can hit 1 or 2, depending on where I position myself, thanks to its cone effect. And can't be resisted, it just does a huge amount of damage to every enemy who is plant-based. This is normally one of the hardest fights in the game, but despite the fact that they don't use any spells and are just melee, having the Dust of Disappearance, just so that you can surround and fight them at your leisure, makes it a lot easier fight. Voila. Now, unlike normal D&D, you don't die when you reach 0 hit points. It's one of the weird things SSI did, which I'm glad they did. There's a unconscious state at 0 hit points, a dying state at negative hit points, and a dead state at negative 10. So we actually did enough damage to kill that bit of Moander, but it really doesn't matter for enemies. It's primarily just for characters, but it allows you to not have to worry about low-level characters getting killed. Some Vegapygmies in here. Once again, it's random how many they are. Vegapygmies are just plant people. They are like walking celery, effectively. And they get cooked by fireballs, of course. But I can also wand of defoliation them. And would hit like 3-ish. I forgot to, though, so oh well. Very good fireballs here. These are making quick work of these Vegapygmies. Some slugs here that are easy to evade, and now the final fight against the Cult of Moander. The last of their forces have all been gathered together in one big setting. And of course, one big setting means that they're that much more vulnerable to big fireball explosions. Alright, so now do I? Nope, only one. Make sure my necklaces are off so I don't fireball my own characters. Okay. Only 14 damage. Very low roll on the defoliation one there. Oh well. About 3 hit points. Didn't need to move that much. Oh well. Okay, that's it. And now we leave the area. Elias and Dragobait say thanks, bye. Now we journey to Zentil Keep. We need to rest up before we go anywhere, of course. Let's cast this Dispel Magic. Whoops. Camp. Need to rest and memorize. Okay. Okay, now we'll see what entering the city once does to the RNG here. I usually don't get encounters. Most of the time you don't have to fight them anyway, but sometimes the bonds compel you to fight. Because now we're at Zentil Keep, which is one of the primarily evil places. The High Priest of Bane of Zentil Keep wants us to be his agents wielding some magical weapons he has that can only be used by good people. So by controlling those good people, he can make use of them. So, unfortunately for him, there's a big division, in Zintel Keep because they're full of evil people. And so other people are trying to prevent him from using us because they want to make use of us themselves or some such. So we're brought before this beholder Dexum, who's opposed to Fazal. And when he shows up and says, you can't mess with these people, they're mine as long as I live, he zaps him with his beholder ray and disintegrates him. And now a big fight has broke out between the two classes. And it's a pretty nasty little area. This room has huge encounter rates. I'm going to try to get through without any more encounters. Even just this fight is a random encounter at this point. And random encounters can and do happen pretty much anywhere at any time you take a step. Or even it waits until after an event happens to process a lot of times if it can do another encounter or not. Luckily, this is a pretty small group. Most of the time, they're big. Now, at this point, most of the enemies are not immune to spells or fire, so we can fireball them. But, of course, in this small area, we toast ourselves. And I want to try to get out of the room without any more encounters. We'll see how lucky I am. Fighting the encounters is, I've tested before, overall still slower than reloading most of the time. If I had reloaded that previous fight, I would have had to go through all of that again anyway, and then possibly again if I hadn't gotten it, so. 2 steps, not enough. If I make it to the door before I get an encounter, I think I'll use it, but I'm hoping to get through the door without any encounters. He might be. Ah, 2 steps again. Pretty high encounter rate in this room, as well as very big groups of enemies in all the encounters here. Unlike Dracandros' tower, where you're fighting 4 to 6 at the very most, sometimes even only 3 enemies that are easy to chop through. They have big groups, but they have so many hit points at this point that even though we can blow through them faster with fireballs, it's not that fast. Oh, thank goodness. Okay. So overall, that did save time. That's unfortunate, though. I should have saved a little bit earlier. This cave area in general is one of the worst encounter sections of the entire game. Including a lot of encounters that just happen after important events or even previous, set encounters. As well as some random events that just happen where it tells you, oh, rocks are trickling down. You hear these weird sounds. You see an illusionary beholder. It doesn't tell you it's an illusion. You have to figure that out afterwards. Like that. But we can leave it alone. This is actually... I don't want to go through there anyway, in fact, if I remember right. Yep. I'm actually running without a map. The first time I've ever done a true run without one. I've been trying to memorize it over the past couple months, and I've done a pretty good job. Went mostly without the map during my test run earlier this morning, too, so... This is a set encounter, though, so I have to fight it, so reloading would do me no good. Luckily, even despite their hit points, fireballs take out these armored minotaurs and priests relatively quickly. The high priests, the purple ones, have a lot of hit points and very good saving throws, so they tend to take a long time to fireball down, especially if I don't roll real well, but the minotaurs go down pretty quick. Oh, I should have gone down one. Would have hit that other cleric too. Oh well. Happens. Yeah. Oh, and he surrendered, so that's it for the fight. Okay. Now save the game after that fight. Save again. Saving doesn't take a lot of time, so... Alright, final battle. Now we're about to catch up to Dexum the Beholder. So first thing we want to do is refresh our dust, because he can be the worst encounter in the game if he can see you. Luckily, he can't use Beholder Rays on you if he can't see you. How very inconvenient for him. But we have an infinite amount of dust of disappearance to make ourselves invisible. The Hooded Woman is a Medusa, and she can stare at you while you're invisible. Somehow. I don't know how that works, but she's able to use her gaze attack just like the Draco Liches. Because even though it's an active attack, I guess it's because of the point is supposed to be that if you look into their eyes, you can get paralyzed or turn to stone or whatever. So they still get a chance to do so to you. So we want to try and dispatch her as soon as possible, but she's way too close to hit with fireballs. Luckily, you usually get to move before her, so a couple of our fighters up front are usually able to take care of her very quickly. Now, the Beholder is immune to fireballs because of the anti-magic ray that he has, rather than being an active ability that he could hit us with to dispel the Dust of Disappearance. He's just immune to spells. So, that's okay, though. Without the ability to gaze at us with his 3 death rays a turn, or technically 1 death, 1 disintegrate, and 1 flesh to stone, but all technically just one-shot rays if you don't make the saving throw. We get to, since he can't hit us with those, he just has a really weak bite attack, and we can surround him and chop him to pieces. And this is a random encounter that almost always happens after that encounter. Unless I take like another random encounter just before the fight. So it kind of doesn't matter. You just take it in the chin and go. These mages are actually weaker than the ones we fought in Ulash, though, even though this is the higher level area as far as the game is concerned. Very strange. But they don't start with Minor Globe of Invulnerability, nor can they cast Fire Shield. Then again, they are in larger groups, so that makes a big difference in later D&D in what they call the challenge rating and such, the CR of the encounter. Nice fireball. I could have Ice Stormed, I guess. Whoops, that was unfortunate. I took out my Ring of Wizardry, which may have just unlearned the spells that I had memorized. Not that it's a big deal, I don't use them very much. It's only bad if I lost my other haste spell, which I may have. And it's still not a big deal, but it's just would have been convenient. Another set encounter right here. Whoops, that's too close to blue. I need to aim 1 higher. Or 1 back. He's still got 89 hit points, though. He has a lot, so he's not in any danger. Pretty good rolls from these necklaces of missiles. Not that one. Yeah, I can only get 1 guy with that, but oh well. Did he surrender? He might have surrendered. Hard to tell when the game is on maximum speed, but of course maximum speed means... Nope, he's still around. There, he surrendered. Okay. Okay, 1 more set encounter left, and some other encounters I'm going to have to avoid, like that one. It's pretty weird how the game is totally different in its handling of random encounters, both when you're sleeping in certain places and just what you encounter on the field from area to area. Some areas they let you flee, some areas they really let you talk through, and some of it, especially the talking your way past certain enemies, is a really good example of how it's dynamic with encounters, but some of the not being able to run is kind of weird. So here's the last one. Oh, I forgot to cast my spell anyway. Not that it matters. I would have cast Haste before this fight because we have another Dark Elf Lord to deal with. Although his sprite is different, stat-wise, he's the exact same as the one we fought in Dracandros' tower, but he doesn't have any plate mail for us to use, or a sword for us to pick up even for a short time. He still has the same stats. He doesn't hit us with the pain, fortunately, but he does have a cleric and a bunch of mana cores with him. Although those are, pretty pointless since they don't get blasted by fireballs. He actually has taken a bit of damage from one of the fireballs. That's pretty surprising. I have gotten pretty lucky overall, in other words. When it comes to saving throw rules from my good buddy, the Dark Elf Lords. I managed to hold person on the third try and then hit him with multiple fireballs. Or maybe I ought to try another hold person. But he goes down pretty quick at this point because we're higher level, get more attacks. And we don't have the pain making us hit less often, which is the huge thing about that other fight. Okay, almost out of this cave, and that is our fourth master dealt with. There are also a bunch of key items that don't appear in your inventory, but it announces that you get them as part of the just the flags of the game. And they're necessary for defeating Tyranthraxus. They're kind of pointless, though. They're just basically story background because, again, they don't appear in the inventory. You can't miss them or get them. As long as you fight the proper boss battles, which you kind of have to do unless the game bugs out and you miss things, which has happened to me before, but never since only when I have done transfer speedruns, transferring Pool of Radiance characters to here and did too much multiplying. And we're out. So now that we're no longer Zentarim, the people of Hillsfar like us, so we need to go to Hillsfar to do our remaining training and such. So to the hall, did I get enough? I didn't. Sometimes I get enough to go to level 8 with my paladin. It's not a big deal if I do or do not. And I get my Ice Storm spell that I never use, but it's nice to have just in case. I should probably get Fire Shield instead just in case he takes damage, because there's a lot of things that can be done. Let's go to the inn. And yes, I did lose those, so... Okay, I have all my spells, right? Yes, okay. Now we journey to the Standing Stone. Tyranthraxus reveals himself. Yes, now that you've eliminated all of my so-called allies, I get you all to myself. Tyranthraxus is the boss that you fight in the first game, Pool of Radiance. And so his big thing is to get revenge on you. He is Tyranthraxus. You tell these people that these insect people that Tyranthraxus is your master, and they leave you alone. Otherwise, they attack you, and Thrycreen are pretty nasty D&D monsters. Woods. Now we will use our dust. Before we do this set encounter, we come to the rescue of this poor man being chased by hellhounds. Again, even though they're hellhounds that breathe fire, they are not immune to fire themselves, so guess what? They're in a line, so fireballs are not particularly... I can't get more than like 3 at a time. Maybe 2 if I do it badly, like I did there. Yeah, I'm only going to get 2 there as well. But, because they're in a line, this other Wand of Lightning is useful. Okay, the man dies, but before he dies, he tells us, thanks for saving me so I wasn't lunch at least. Here's where I buried treasure. Go get it, please. We promised to give these Rakshasa half of our money, and they don't attack us. That sounds like a great deal for a speedrun, because I don't need money for anything, so why not give it to them? I don't rescue this guy because he's fake. He's a Rakshasa illusion. Nameless tells us he's going to help us. We say thank you. Now we come after the buried treasure. Do not let us find you again, but they never stop doing that. We look so we can dig up the treasure, and this is a +5 longsword, the best in the game, as well as a girdle of storm giant strength, which will give us a 24 strength, which is absolutely ridiculous. Gives us like +7 to hit and +14 damage. Pretty nice. Of course, mostly I'm going to be using fireballs here, but I have to do at least a little melee, so it's worth it to have a +5 weapon with... oh, it's +6, +12. That's escape. So now we enter the temple. Tyrant Thraxus takes control of us. He's a demonic spirit who transfers his spirit into the bodies of other things. So he was first in a bronze dragon, but he uses the Pool of Radiance, which is the title of the first game, to transfer between the abyssal plane and his lair. And... so his plot is to use us as his new body. Since we were powerful enough heroes to defeat him, if he takes control of us, he has 6 new powerful bodies that are heroes of the good, the civilized races and people of Faerun. And by becoming his puppets and his bodies, of course, he can strike a blow for his master, Lord Bane, who's the god of evil and god of death, mostly, in the era pre-2nd edition Forgotten Realms setting. And of course, if you know Baldur's Gate 2, that involves the Time of Troubles, which is a major event that happens between 1st and 2nd editions of D&D and the Forgotten Realms universe, where the gods become mortal and are forced to walk the world, and Bane actually ends up getting killed. But Bane is... the minions of Bane are pretty much the primary antagonists of the entirety of this this group of gold box games. Pool of Radiance, Pool of Curse of the Azure Bonds, Secret of the Silver Blades, and Pools of Darkness.
Pools of Darkness.
And now we're just chopping guys up, unless I use a lightning bolt, which I forgot that I had and could use. Oh, there are only 2 in that line? I could have gone 4 in the other line. Oh well. Oh, that one ran away, darn it. It's going to be hard to chase down because they're fast. Here's a good place for a magic missile, though. 12. Not quite enough. Ah, good. Okay, now the bond's power is slowly returning. And lots of random encounters in this area as well, but it's the final area in the game, so... Nope, that was the wrong one. I didn't want that game. This game. Sheesh. Now, sometimes I can get lucky and get pretty much no encounters during this entire thing, and sometimes I'll get more than a dozen encounters and constantly be saving and reloading. And only one step. One guy, okay. Okay, I made it 3 steps. Worth saving for. Okay, I've made it more steps. Okay, how many? Just three high priests, though. That's going to take a lot to even fireball, so... Gonna reload here. Didn't make many steps. I could actually PB on this run. If I get good RNG the rest of the way, I might be able to get a sub 130. That would be pretty amazing. I don't think so, though. The final battle's generally kind of a little long, even with fireballs. One step again. Come on. 1 priest and 2 guys there. I'll deal with it. One of my weakest fireballs. Awesome. The biggest problem is running the distance, because these enemies, some of them will charge you and get close to you, but otherwise you have to often, since we have to run up close to them, and there goes my spells again. Blast. Nope, I'm going to reload then. That's actually a bad thing to do at this point. Haste makes too big a difference in the final fight, and I could have lost both my haste spells with that. Yeah, I'm not going to, probably not at this point going to get a PB or a sub 130, but we're easily going to still make estimate here. Yay. Let's try again. Give me a few steps here. It's pretty crazy because there's no consistency in the RNG. Except for a few weird points, like with the meeting the commander in Ulash and having an encounter right after the Dexum fight. Alright, we're on the 2nd floor. Only a few steps left. Some minions. This is the last hallway. 8 of them, that's too many. Okay, final, no more encounters. We're good. So first thing we're going to do is make sure that we have dust for the entire fight. Refresh that. Cast our bless. Cast one of our prayers. Cast one of our hastes. I used up my other potion already, so we're good to go here. Here's Tyranthraxus and his enemies. Tyranthraxus is immune to fire, but his enemies are not. Now, you can diminish the forces in this room by dealing with all these other encounters in the final dungeon, but that's really slow, especially for a speedrun, so... We just, because the more enemies there are in one fight, the more damage you do with fireballs. So we're going to be spending a few turns using our necklaces of missiles to clear the room, and then Tyranthraxus, who is almost immune to magic, we will just deal with by chopping down to size with our hasted characters. Wand of Fireballs generally does 20 or more damage, but that time it failed me completely. Only 15. Good, good. That's that area cleared out. Now, Tyranthraxus is in the body of a storm giant, so if we didn't have Dust of Disappearance for this fight, he would be tossing lightning bolts at us, and of course all those clerics would be casting Hold Person on us. But once again, the power of Dust of Disappearance makes this a pretty one-sided affair. All these Margoyles are minor annoyances at best. They don't have that great an armor class or hit points for the end-game enemies that they are. Margoyles, by the way, are wingless, spiked gargoyles, essentially. There are a few places in the game where you can see pictures of them at work, or whatever. But we never get those encounters, but you fight them a bunch in this Temple of Tyranthraxus's. Good, final fireball, and now we just chop him to bits. And that's it. 3 hits and he's dead. Not quite time yet. And now, Tyranthraxus Spirit Slain, we use the Gauntlet of Moander we got from the Cult of Moander to destroy the Pool of Radiance. The final bond leaves us and we are free at last. And then the Knights of Myth Draenor bust into the room in the next cutscene. They take us to a feast, and time is when the final text box appears saying, "You have won." Which is going to be now, time. And that... Now I have to wait for the stream to catch up to me so I can see what my time was, but it looks like that was a pretty darn good time. My PB is 1:32:03. So, less than a minute off of my PB. That was a really good run. Whew. So that was AD&D's Curse of the Azure Bonds, made possible thanks to the power of duplication glitch, giving me an infinite amount of key items to use. I could now actually, this is a any percent new game category because I can now take my characters, remove them all from this party into the party pool, and then start a brand new game and put them in the party with all my equipment, with all these levels, and play the game over again, which would make it pretty, even quicker. I'm the only person who runs this game, or its predecessor, Pool of Radiance, or the game that follows, Secret of Silver Blades, so I haven't posted any of those publicly yet. I've worked out a few experimental speedruns for it. But I haven't yet done a real category for New Game Plus, but it is something I could do in the future, and I have thought about, so that's why we have that. But thanks for watching, everybody. That's pretty much all.
Alright guys, that was interesting run. Up next we have here's Pokemon Diamond being ran by Skoa. So hang around, put some music on, and we'll get that area out for you guys.